This 10-year-old girl is named Kyung-hee. Kyung-hee. She was trained by an assassin organization from a very young age. Today, Kyung-hee will participate in an assembly and shooting competition. The loser will be punished with a fatal shot to the head. However, the girl hesitates and refuses to shoot her opponent. Seeing Kyung-hee hesitate, the leader of the organization personally shoots her opponent dead. Kyung-hee. She believes she is kind-hearted and gentle. Yet she wonders how she can avenge her father. Kyung-hee came from a poor background. She once had a happy family. But one day, a group of robbers suddenly broke into their home and murdered Kyung-hee's father. To avoid being discovered, Kyung-hee could only hide under the bed and watch her father die before her eyes. Kyung-hee was in unbearable pain, but in the end the robbers still found her. However, they did not kill her. Instead, Kyung-hee was given to a high-ranking official. For his pleasure, assassin Dong-sang appeared just in time and accidentally saved Kyung-hee. From then on, Kyung-hee joined the assassin organization. She trained relentlessly and swore to avenge her father. Others practiced holding their breath for 5 minutes, but Kyung-hee pushed herself even further. So much that people panicked and dragged her out of the water. With such ferocity, Kyung-hee eventually became the top assassin of the organization. 15 years passed in the blink of an eye. Kyung-hee now has a slender figure. Kyung-hee developed feelings for Dong-sang, and the two soon walked down the aisle. Dong-sang promised Kyung-hee that after getting married, he would give up this violent life. However, Kyung-hee had no idea disaster was quietly approaching. That day, while the two were eating at a restaurant, Dong-sang suddenly received a call saying a team member had been captured. He had to go rescue them immediately. That night, Kyung-hee received terrible news that Dong-sang had been killed. His death was so horrific that the body could not be identified. In fact, Dong-sang had discovered the enemies who killed Kyung-hee's father. He planned to secretly send people to deal with them, hoping to surprise Kyung-hee. But unexpectedly, both Dong-sang and his men were ambushed and beaten to death. When she learned the truth, Kyung-hee was devastated. In her fury, Kyung-hee fell into a frenzied state. She thought she would spend the rest of her life in prison. However, Kyung-hee's astonishing combat ability caught the attention of the National Security Agency. They decided to exploit her and train her into a super agent. When Kyung-hee woke up, she found herself inside a secret service base. But Kyung-hee didn't want to stay. She only wanted to escape. It wasn't until the base director presented a medical report about Kyung-hee that she gave up resisting. It turned out Kyung-hee was pregnant. She could live a normal life on the condition that she served the agency. 15 years later, they would perform plastic surgery to give Kyung-hee a new identity. From then on, Kyung-hee officially became an agent. The female leader at the base knew Kyung-hee's strength, so she angrily came to provoke her. But Kyung-hee merely scoffed and walked away. Kyung-hee didn't expect that woman to let her off. A sneak attack from behind succeeded, infuriating Kyung-hee. Hyun-soo stood behind the surveillance monitors, watching the scene with satisfaction. He had liked Kyung-hee for a long time. Hyun-soo truly hoped that one day he could be with her. Kyung-hee is the strongest agent, but being skilled at killing alone isn't enough. Under EL's arrangements, Kyung-hee was also trained in cooking, makeup, and stage acting, so that when she went on missions, she could disguise herself more easily. Kyung-hee also competed in shooting with other trainees. The skills she learned from childhood helped her handle these situations effortlessly. Finally, graduation day arrived. The organization arranged Kyung-hee's final exam. As long as she completed the mission, Kyung-hee could take her daughter out and live a normal life. Because Kyung-hee was still young, she needed to reintegrate into society. In fact, Kyung-hee had waited for this day for many years. Thus, the exam mission was completed, and Kyung-hee could leave the training camp and be with her daughter, just as she wished. Before leaving, Guo assigned Kyung-hee a new identity. He also rented a house for her in the city. However, on the very first day she moved in, Kyung-hee ran into Hyun-soo. In fact, Hyun-soo had been sent to monitor her and lived in the house next door. Hyun-soo had liked Kyung-hee for a long time, so when they met, he was far more enthusiastic than expected. This annoyance made Kyung-hee call EL. Guo was asked by Kyung-hee to investigate Hyun-soo. But since Hyun-soo was assigned to monitor her, Guo had no choice but to fabricate a story to calm Kyung-hee. Over the following days, Hyun-soo completely forgot his monitoring mission. When Kyung-hee missed the bus while holding her child, Hyun-soo immediately ran over to speak with the driver, stalling for time so she could get on. When Kyung-hee went to the supermarket, he volunteered to push the cart for her. When Kyung-hee headed home without an umbrella, Hyun-soo waited at the station with one for her. An ordinary woman would find it hard to resist such attention. Before long, the two officially confirmed their relationship. However, before Hyun-soo could enjoy this happiness, Kyung-hee received a new mission. The organization ordered Kyung-hee to carry out the mission with a female colleague. Kyung-hee infiltrated the target's place at night. To obtain critical information, the two disguised themselves as bartenders. To approach the target, taking advantage of the man's embrace, 22:700 Kyung-hee secretly took his phone. After that, she made an excuse to go to the restroom and copied all the data inside. But at that moment, the target noticed something was wrong. He turned back, and Kyung-hee's female partner was subdued. They threatened Kyung-hee to hand over the information, because her partner would be killed by them. After her colleague died at their hands, Kyung-hee's mentality changed drastically. This was a job where she faced death every single day, never knowing when it would be her turn. But Kyung-hee also had a daughter. If she died, her daughter would be left all alone. So Kyung-hee accepted Hyun-soo's feelings. She then called Won UK to report the situation. Since they were both women, Won UK understood Kyung-hee's decision. However, Won UK wanted Kyung-hee to carry out another mission on the very day of her wedding. This time, the target was a crime boss. On the wedding day, Guo arranged everything at the scene. Kyung-hee retrieved a disassembled sniper rifle from a toilet tank. After assembling it, she aimed at the target through an air vent. When she clearly saw the man's face, Kyung-hee was utterly shocked. That was why the bullet missed, because it was Dong-sang. The husband she believed was dead. She felt dizzy and confused. The entire wedding seemed to fade away. Kyung-hee was so immersed in the moment that she could not pull herself out. That night, Dong-sang traced the sniper shot's trajectory and found Kyung-hee's firing position. Dong-sang identified Kyung-hee from hotel security footage. Even though she had undergone plastic surgery, he recognized her at a glance. Not long after, the two met at a restaurant. Kyung-hee pretended not to know Dong-sang and said that she was already married. They exchanged polite greetings. Dong-sang then turned and left. The next day, Kyung-hee received a flash drive from Dong-sang. Inside was a recording of a phone call between Hyun-soo and Won UK. It was made when Dong-sang and Kyung-hee met at the restaurant. Dong-sang had someone tail Hyun-soo and secretly record the conversation. After listening to the recording, Kyung-hee learned that Hyun-soo was an undercover agent sent by the organization. Kyung-hee thought that Hyun-soo had only been using her feelings, and she was heartbroken. Kyung-hee was now extremely disappointed in that man. To take revenge, Kyung-hee revealed to Dong-sang that there was a woman trying to kill him. As a result, the female operative on the mission had not even stepped out of the elevator before being captured by Dong-sang's men. At this moment, EL noticed Kyung-hee's strange behavior. EL summoned Kyung-hee to talk, but instead, Kyung-hee exposed EL's lies on the spot. The two argued fiercely, forcing EL to bring Kyung-hee back to the organization. But on the way back, a stranger blocked their vehicle. That stranger was none other than Dong-sang. Dong-sang demanded Kyung-hee come with him immediately. However, Kyung-hee wanted to bring her daughter along. Just as she ran downstairs, a massive explosion erupted from the room. Kyung-hee only had time to see Hyun-soo holding her daughter fall from above. Both crashed down right in front of Kyung-hee and died instantly. In despair, Kyung-hee went to see EL first. But instead of explaining, EL showed Kyung-hee surveillance footage in which Hyun-soo was carrying her daughter home when Dong-sang's men seized him. To protect the child, Hyun-soo was forced to admit that the girl was Dong-sang's daughter. When Dong-sang's men called to confirm, Hyun-soo never imagined that Dong-sang would be even more ruthless, because the one Dong-sang truly wanted to eliminate was that very child. Dong-sang even threatened Hyun-soo, demanding that he kill the girl himself. Only then would Hyun-soo be spared. But Hyun-soo could never agree. So Dong-sang ordered his men to wait until Kyung-hee appeared, then detonate the bomb right in front of her. Dong-sang's goal was to force Kyung-hee to completely sever ties with the organization. Kyung-hee would have no choice but to return to him and become a killing machine once again. After learning the truth, Kyung-hee nearly went insane. She couldn't understand how the man she loved most could hurt her so cruelly. Before leaving, Guo handed Kyung-hee the recorded conversation with Hyun-soo. Only then did Kyung-hee realize that Hyun-soo truly loved her. Hyun-soo hoped their marriage was real and was willing to care for her and her daughter. In the end, he wanted to take the two of them away from the violent world to live an ordinary life. After hearing this, Kyung-hee fell silent for a long time. She then went to Dong-sang office. When the two faced each other, Kyung-hee asked Dong-sang whether he had ever truly loved her. But unexpectedly, at that moment, Dong-sang confessed that he was the one who killed Kyung-hee's father. Dong-sang knew very well how determined Kyung-hee was to avenge her father. That was why the two of them could never be lovers. Dong-sang's original goal had never been simple murder, but to train her into a killing machine. With everything exposed, the two immediately lunged at each other. To end everything, one of them had to die. The police quickly arrived at the scene. But in that moment, Kyung-hee merely revealed a terrifying smile. Life had forced Kyung-hee to endure unbearable suffering. For almost her entire life, she had lived for her enemy. Moreover, she had struggled greatly just to find true love. And even her beloved daughter was gone. The film ends here.